The elders through church and religion and serving God was not excluded to Sunday, but every day they walked with the Lord. Sunday was just the icing on the cake. They had an experience with God that was real. The origin of Israel's decline, as we would trace back any cause, was due to their contradictory confession. They talked about church and they talked about the house of worship, but yet it was not in their lifestyle. In chapter 7, and I'm hurrying along, he says, the word of the Lord that came to Jeremiah, saying, stand in the gate of the Lord's house, and proclaim there the word, and say, hear the word of the Lord, all ye Judah, that enter in at these gates to worship the Lord. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, amend your ways, fix your ways, fix your doing, bind up your doing. Stop doing the things that you're doing and your doings, he says. And I will cause you to dwell in this place. Trust ye not in lying words, saying the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord, the temple of the Lord are these. For if ye thoroughly amend your ways and your doing, if ye thoroughly execute judgment between a man and his neighbor, if ye oppress not the stranger, the fatherless, and the widow. Let me tell you something. I have seen days when I went to church and I felt like I was all right because I had done my religious duty. Because I had went to church and served the Lord on that Sunday, so I felt like I was all right. But you see, it's not just coming into this house. But what about the days? What about Monday? What about Tuesday? What about Wednesday? What about Thursday? What about Friday? What about Saturday? Before we get here, what have we done in those days? They talked about religion, but they didn't live it. Jeremiah's prophetic counterpart, Isaiah, he says, for wherefore the Lord said, for as much as this people draw near me, but have with their mouth and with their lips, they honor me. But their hearts are far from me. And their fear or religion of me is taught by the commandment of men. These people found themselves just going through the motions, just doing what they have been taught to do. They have been taught to say amen. They have been taught to raise their hand. They have been taught to do all of these things. But God says, no, I want more than that. I want your heart. You see, when the elders served God in the old days, they served God with their heart. They had something. If you just listen to the songs, listen to the songs today, and listen to the songs back then, you will find that those songs had substance, that those songs had meaning, that those songs had a history, that those songs had reality in the pages of writing. They had reality. There was something that they had come into contact with by serving God that was real to them. From it. You couldn't move them from it. You couldn't talk them away from it. You couldn't tell them that God wouldn't pay off after a while. Serving the Lord wouldn't pay off after a while. You couldn't tell them that because they weren't convinced. Are we convinced, church, that God is worth serving? Are we convinced, church, that God will make a way? Are we convinced, church, that every day that I live, I am going to follow Jesus all the way? I don't care how rough the road gets, I'm going to walk with it. I don't care who turns their back on me, I'm going to walk with it. I don't care who talks about me, I'm going to walk with it. I don't care about all those things because I'm going to walk with the Lord because it's real. It's real. It's real in my soul. Let me tell you something. We better get a hold of God. We better get a hold of His Word. We better serve God like we used to. If you just turn on the international news this morning, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you just read Time magazine, you'll know what I'm talking about. Church, this world is in trouble. Our economy is in trouble. People are killing each other at an alarming rate. People are turning away from the church at an alarming rate. They have children killing their mothers. They have fathers killing their children. They have family members molesting other family members. And even when they're little babies, we need to go back to serving the Lord like we used to serving. We need to go back. We need to go back. Church, this world is in trouble. We better get a hold of God because it's the midnight hour. It's getting late in the evening and the sun is going down. This is not a plaything with me. I'm telling you what I feel in my spirit. I'm telling you what God gave me to give to you. I didn't know I was going to say all this, but let me tell you something. God is concerned about each and every one of us. He wants to bring us back and give us back what we lost through the years. How can the church rebound from such a great decline? And I'm wrapping this thing up now. How can the church rebound or come back from such a great decline, such a great fall? It is not a Humpty Dumpty syndrome. You remember that story? I remember as a child it said Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty back together again. But let me tell you something, God is able to put his church back together again. Because Jesus stood flat-footed and he said, this is my church. I will build my church upon a rock, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. The church has not yet seen its finest hour, but Jesus is about to move in his church to bring us back to that place of a sincere worship before God, where it means something in our heart. God, through the mouth of Jeremiah, instructed Israel and instructs the church today. He says, thus saith the Lord, stand ye in the ways and see, and ask for the old paths, where the good way is. And he says, walk therein, and ye shall find rest for your souls. But they said, we will not walk therein. You see, church, first of all, to come back from this great fall, from this great apostasy, we must first position ourselves. We must take a stand with our eyes wide open and realize that we're not where we should be. We cannot approach this thing with closed eyes and say, well, everything is all right. We know that we don't pray like we used to pray. We know that we don't sing like we used to sing. We know that we don't come to the house of God with such joy in our hearts like we used to. We go back to the old landmarks. They couldn't wait until Sunday came to go into the house of God because they knew that they were going to hear a word from the Lord. So how do we go back to the old landmarks? First of all, we must begin to serve God with an unswerving faith. We must hold on to God's unchanging hand. Are you praying with me? With such fidelity, we must go back to that. We must go back to our fundamentals, the foundations that made the church great, the foundation of faith, the foundation of fear, the foundation of serving the Lord with a true heart.